Hi, good afternoon to all of you. So let's start. Clear? So we'll be starting with another session, and we were discussing about the consequences of the First World War, in which we began to discuss about Paris Peace Conference, where deliberations of all sorts were taken or were done, and at this time it resulted into several treaties being imposed on defeated powers. The most humiliating treaty being imposed upon Germany that paralyzed Germany in all possible ways. Clear? We'll discuss the consequences of the Treaty of Versailles. At the same time, clear, the victorious powers or the allied powers imposed some treaties on other defeated powers as well, and through these treaties some areas were taken over and some new countries were created through redrawal of the national boundaries. Clear? So redrawal of national boundaries was started in Paris Peace Conference. Some new countries were created in the Balkan region, and that itself became Balkanization process in European continent. Clear? So let us understand about those treaties first of all. Clear? So we were supposed to start with this. We had completed with Treaty of Versailles. Now we'll start with other treaties imposed on defeated powers leading to redrawal of national boundaries. Clear? First of all, clear, an important treaty known as another defeated power in the First World War was Austria. And on Austria, the Treaty of Saint-Germain was imposed by the victorious powers. Saint-Germain is another city of France where treaty was signed, and therefore the treaty itself came to be known as Treaty of Saint-Germain. Clear? What happened under the provisions of Saint-Germain Treaty? We'll just understand. Under the provisions of the Treaty of Saint-Germain, Austria was forced to surrender two large provinces of Bohemia and Moravia. Clear? So two large provinces of Bohemia and Moravia were surrendered by Austria. These two regions of Bohemia and Moravia were combined together to create a different country or a new country. This country being known as the Czech Republic. Clear? So Czech Republic was created at this time through redrawal of national boundaries, whereby Bohemia and Moravia were combined together to create Czech Republic. Moreover, we had discussed that Austria had conquered two regions of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which affected the Serb sentiment leading to Balkan crisis. Therefore, under Treaty of Saint-Germain, Austria was forced to surrender the regions of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Clear? So regions of Bosnia and Herzegovina were taken from Austria, and these two regions were clubbed together with another Balkan region of Serbia that led to the creation of another country known as Yugoslavia. Clear? So two countries known as Czech Republic and Yugoslavia was created. Yugoslavia was created after taking Bosnia and Herzegovina from Austria, and they were clubbed together with Serbia to create Yugoslavia. Clear? At the same time, clear, Hungary was separated from Austria under Treaty of Saint-Germain. So redrawal of national boundaries took place, and two countries of Czech Republic and the country of Yugoslavia was created. Clear? Since Hungary was separated at this point of time, clear, at this point of time, a separate treaty was imposed upon Hungary. Clear? So another defeated power became Hungary, and on Hungary the victorious powers imposed the Treaty of Trianon. Clear? As per the Treaty of Trianon only, clear, large province of Slovakia was taken from Hungary, and Slovakia was integrated with Czech Republic, and thereafter this country came to be known as Czechoslovakia. Clear? So Czechoslovakia was a large country created with the addition of Slovakia from Hungary. So initially known as Czech Republic, then it came to be known as Czechoslovakia with addition of Slovakia from Hungary. Clear? At the same time, under Treaty of Trianon, Hungary was forced to surrender the region of Croatia. And this region of Croatia was added with or integrated with Yugoslavia. So it led to further redrawal of national boundaries, and Yugoslavia began to comprise of Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, and Croatia. Clear? At the same time, Hungary was also forced to surrender the region of Transylvania, and this region of Transylvania was given to Romania, another victorious power. Romania. This was a bit Hungary. Clear? Now coming to another treaty, the next defeated power in the First World War. This next defeated power after Austria-Hungary was Turkey, was Bulgaria, the Balkan region. Clear? So Bulgaria was defeated, and on Bulgaria the victorious powers imposed the Treaty of Neuilly. Clear? And as per the provisions of the Treaty of Neuilly, Bulgaria was forced to surrender the region of, clear? Bulgaria was forced to surrender the region of Western Thrace. And this region of Western Thrace was integrated with Greece. Clear? So Greece was given the region of Western Thrace, which was another victorious power. Clear? The last major treaty was imposed upon Turkey, another defeated power, and this was known as Treaty of Sevres. And as per the Treaty of Sevres, Turkey was forced to surrender the region of Eastern Thrace, and it was also given to Greece. So Greece was given Western Thrace also, Eastern Thrace as well, and large scale redrawal of national boundaries took place. For your understanding, as of now, Yugoslavia again has been divided into many countries. Now Yugoslavia is separate, Bosnia-Herzegovina is separate, Serbia is separate, Croatia is separate, and at the same time new countries like Albania and Kosovo has also been created on ethnic lines. Clear? So we'll understand much better when we look into the map of Balkan region. Clear? See, the region is here. Clear? So first of all, Bosnia and Herzegovina is separate, Serbia is separate, Croatia is separate. Clear? And at the same time, clear, Macedonia was also added. Macedonia is separate. Then Bulgaria and Romania and Greece is already there. So this whole region is known as Balkan region, that was largely created after First World War. Clear? So coming back to this region. Clear? So in this way, redrawal of national boundaries took place in the Paris Peace Conference as a result of 4 other treaties apart from Treaty of Versailles. Right about these treaties. Clear? Right. The Allied or the victorious powers, the Allied or the victorious powers imposed the Treaty of Saint-Germain, on Austria. Clear? Austria. Right. According to this treaty, Austria was forced to surrender two large provinces, of Bohemia and Moravia, two large provinces of Bohemia and Moravia, to create a new country, of Czech Republic, new country of Czech Republic, CZECH, Czech Republic, country of Czech Republic. Right, beside, Austria was forced to surrender. Austria was forced to surrender the regions of Bosnia and Herzegovina, forced to surrender the regions of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which were integrated with Serbia, to create a new country, of Yugoslavia, country of Yugoslavia. Clear? Change paragraph. Right, the Allied powers imposed a separate treaty of Trianon, on Hungary, whereby Hungary was forced to surrender Croatia, which was integrated with Yugoslavia. Clear? Right. Moreover, Hungary surrendered the region of Slovakia, which was integrated with the Czech Republic, to create Czechoslovakia, with addition of Slovakia, Czechoslovakia. Clear? Right. Moreover, Hungary gave the region of Transylvania, which was integrated with Romania, another victorious power, Clear? Change paragraph. Right. The victorious powers imposed the Treaty of Neuilly. All these are cities of France. Imposed the Treaty of Neuilly, Neuilly, Treaty of Neuilly on Bulgaria, whereby the region of Macedonia was taken away, and integrated with Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia. Clear? Right. Moreover, the region of Western Thrace was taken from Bulgaria. The region of Western Thrace was taken from Bulgaria and integrated with Greece. Integrated with Greece. Integrated with Greece. Clear? Greece. Change paragraph. Right. Finally, the Allied powers imposed the Treaty of Sevres, S-E-V-R-E, Treaty of Sevres on Turkey, whereby Eastern Thrace was taken over. Eastern Thrace was taken over and integrated with Greece. Taken over and integrated with Greece. Integrated with Greece. It's clear? Change paragraph, right? In this way, redrawal of national boundaries. In this way, redrawal of national boundaries took place. National boundaries took place, which led to the creation of two new countries in Balkan region. Two new countries in the Balkan region. So anytime it can be there, redrawal of national boundaries. Clear? All took place due to result of treaty signed in Paris Peace Conference. Now coming to again, clear? The Paris Peace Conference is important for one another reason. That reason is that Turkey was forced to accept this treaty. Why? We had discussed Turkey surrendered in First World War due to decline and disintegration of large Ottoman Empire headed by Turkey. Clear? Since Ottoman Empire disintegrated after the First World War, clear? Large number of Islamic countries of West Asia became independent, and it was realized that these countries may become vulnerable to law and order, chaos and anarchy. In order to maintain proper law and order in these Islamic countries, which was liberated from Ottoman Empire, clear? A new system was brought about in Paris Peace Conference known as the Mandate System. As per the Mandate System, European powers like Britain and France were given the charge to look after the proper administration of these Islamic countries, and therefore they were supposed to be promoted by European powers. In this context only, Britain was given the mandate over Palestine and France was given the mandate over Syria and Lebanon. Clear? From here, mandate system came into being, which is different from colonialism and imperialism, because here the purpose was basically to promote proper law and order and to ensure the development of these regions. Clear? So Palestine came under the mandate of Britain and Syria and Lebanon came under the mandate of France. This mandate system came into being largely because of the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire. This was another development in the Paris Peace Conference. Clear? Right, next paragraph. Right, in the Paris Peace Conference, mandate system. In the Paris Peace Conference, the mandate system was established. So please dictate slowly. Okay, fine, I'll do that. Don't worry. Clear? In the mandate system, in the Paris Peace Conference, the mandate system was established to ensure proper law and order, in Islamic countries, in Islamic countries, after the disintegration of the large Ottoman Empire, after the disintegration of the large Ottoman Empire, clear? Right, under this system, Palestine came under Britain. Palestine came under Britain, and Syria and Lebanon came under the mandate of France. Do remember this point. Britain only therefore played an important role to create a new Jewish state of Israel within Palestine after Second World War, because Palestine was under the mandate of United Kingdom or Britain. Clear? So this was another development in Paris Conference. Next, clear? In the Paris Peace Conference, we had discussed US President Woodrow Wilson proved to be a great idealist, and in order to ensure collective security and peace and stability all across the world, Woodrow Wilson gave the idea of establishing an international institution at global level, which was named as the League of Nations. Clear? The objective of League of Nations was to maintain healthy relationship among major countries of the world and to prevent the occurrence of any war like the Second World War in coming time. Clear? However, the League of Nations proved to be an ineffective and toothless organization from the beginning, because United States itself did not join the League of Nations. Even though League of Nations idea was given by Woodrow Wilson, US President, United States never joined the League of Nations. Why? The US Senate, that is the main legislative body, the Senate in United States made it clear that US Senate will not be a party to any discussion of Paris Peace Conference, because it was filled with controversies, it was filled with humiliating provisions like Treaty of Versailles. Clear? Therefore, the US Senate made it clear that America will not be a part of any deliberations of Paris Peace Conference, and it will not join the League of Nations. Since the most powerful country, United States itself, did not join the League of Nations, from the beginning it remained to be a powerless, it remained to be a toothless organization and could not maintain collective security. Clear? But it was the idea given and established by Woodrow Wilson. Clear? Even though it proved to be ineffective, two specialized agencies were established under the ambit of the League of Nations that continues to exist till contemporary times. These two specialized agencies are International Labour Organization with its headquarters at Geneva, and second is International Court of Justice with its headquarters at Hague in Netherlands. Clear? So these developments took place at this time, and with these developments only major changes began to take place at global level. Clear? Right, first of all, next, clear? Right, in the Paris Peace Conference, US President Woodrow Wilson advocated the establishment of the League of Nations. Advocated the establishment of League of Nations to maintain collective security, and to prevent any other world war. Clear? Right, next. Right, however, The League of Nations proved to be a toothless organization. Proved to be a toothless organization from the beginning. Toothless organization from the beginning. Because United States refused to join the global institution. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. The League of Nations established two specialized agencies in form of International Labour Organization at Geneva and the International Court of Justice at Hague, Netherlands, which continue to exist till contemporary times. Clear? So all these discussions under Paris Peace Conference. We'll come to League of Nations and how it failed to prevent the Second World War in 1939. We'll come to the failure of the League of Nations as well. Clear? So all these discussions, all these deliberations in the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, which was really a comprehensive conference at global level, and this comprehensive conference at global level maintained or rather proved to be highly progressive development, relevant development all across the world. So consequences of First World War is very important, and you have to complete Paris Peace Conference quite elaborately. Clear? So we have done all the facets and dimensions of the Paris Peace Conference. Clear? Now meanwhile, clear, before we proceed to discuss about all the developments between the two world wars, also known in history as interwar years. Clear? Here first of all we'll discuss about another revolution of world history that took place in the midst of First World War only, and this ideological revolution that took place in 1917 during First World War was known as the Russian Revolution, or also known as the Socialist Revolution. So now we'll discuss about another revolution of world history, that is the Socialist Revolution or the Russian Revolution of 1917. Clear? So let us move to the next topic, that is Russian Revolution. Russian Revolution. We'll understand about this revolution. Just understand. Clear? First of all, I'll let you know about Russian Revolution, that first of all, the same set of factors which led to French Revolution in 1789 also led to Russian Revolution, only with respect to change in nomenclature and time. Clear? So same set of factors which were responsible for French Revolution were also responsible for Russian Revolution that took place in 1917. We'll come to those factors. Clear? The factors for French Revolution we had already discussed discussed. Now we'll discuss about the factors leading to Russian Revolution in 1917. Clear? Before we move on to discuss about the factors, there's a question from Vishwajit. Sir, is League of Nations became United Nations after Second War, or it is different organization? We'll come to that, Vishwajit, but here for your information, I'll let you know, League of Nations was abolished or ended after Second World War as it failed to prevent Second World War. And this League of Nations was replaced by a binding organization known as the United Nations Organization after Second World War. So League of Nations was ended and replaced by more powerful and binding organization known as United Nations Organization. So as of now, after Second World War, League of Nations is not in existence. So United Nations, League of Nations are not two different institutions. League of Nations came to an end after Second World War and it was replaced by United Nations Organization. Is that clear, Vishwajit? Is this clear? You need to know this thing. So right now, as of now, League of Nations does not exist. Right now, we have the most powerful organization global level, and that is in form of United Nations Organization. It's clear. Now let us move to Russian Revolution that took place. Set of analogous factors that led to French Revolution also led to Russian Revolution. So just to recapitulate, clear? We had discussed that French Revolution took place just because of the ancient regime or the redundant hierarchy that existed in France, which was marked by domination of clergy class, domination of nobility class, and all these two classes were given all exemptions and privileges, and burden of taxation felt on the common people or the third estate. Clear? Similarly, the same system existed in Russia till 1917. There was the hierarchical structure in which the clergy dominated the hierarchy. The clergy class were given all exemptions and privileges. Then second section was of nobility class, who were also given exemptions and privileges, and the whole burden of taxation fell on the shoulders of the common people or the common masses. Clear? So obviously masses were filled with discontent and resentment to get rid of this system, and that created ground for revolutionary sentiment. This was one analogous factor from French Revolution. Second factor, as we had discussed, French Revolution was preceded by ideological revolution, as French thinkers and philosophers inspired the people for radical changes. Similarly, in Russia also, people were motivated and inspired by Russian thinkers and philosophers for revolutionary changes, and two among them were Leo Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Leo Tolstoy and Dostoevsky inspired the masses for revolutionary changes, and that created confidence among masses to retaliate against the existing system. This became the second reason for Russian Revolution. Third factor for French Revolution was immediate factor, that is financial crisis, largely due to autocratic monarchs, that is Louis XIV, 15 and 16. Similarly, Russia was also ruled by autocratic monarchs who belonged to the royal family known as the Romanov family, and these monarchs in Russia were traditionally known as czars. Clear? They never cared for the welfare and upliftment of masses because most of them ruled by virtue of belonging to the royal family, the Romanov family. Clear? And the prestige of Russians got adversely affected when Russian monarch took the decision to participate in First World War, in which Russia was thoroughly defeated by Germany and Austria-Hungary, and that convinced the people to get rid of the autocratic monarchy in Russia, the rule of czars in Russia, and that resulted into revolutionary developments. Clear? So same set of factors that led to French Revolution also led to the outbreak of Russian Revolution. Clear? So we'll come to the factors leading to Russian Revolution in 1917. Write about these factors. Clear? Right? The Russian Revolution is considered to be the greatest ideological revolution, of world history. Okay. Right. There are several factors which led to Russian Revolution, which led to Russian Revolution, among which, among which, among which, among which the traditional, among which the traditional socio-economic structure, traditional socio-economic structure was the most important. Traditional socio-economic structure was the most important. Most important. Clear? Right. Russian society was marked by clear-cut hierarchy. Russian society was marked by clear-cut hierarchy, in which the top position, in which the top position was occupied by, in which the top position was occupied by the clergy class, occupied by the clergy class, occupied by the clergy class, who were given all privileges, who were given all privileges and exemptions, all privileges and exemptions from taxes, exemptions from taxes. Okay. Taxes. Right. The second position was taken by, the second position was taken by the nobility class, taken by the nobility class. As feudalism existed in Russia, feudalism existed in Russia, in Russia. Clear? Right? Even the nobility class, even the nobility class was given all privileges in Russian society and economy. In Russian society and economy. Clear? Right. Consequently, the whole burden of taxation, consequently, the whole burden of taxation fell on the shoulders of, the common people, fell on the shoulders of common people, and they wanted to change. And they wanted to change the whole structure and system. The whole structure and system. So similar to French Revolution, system and structure. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. The Russian people were inspired and motivated. The Russian people were inspired and motivated by philosophers, philosophers who advocated radical changes, who advocated radical changes, who advocated radical changes, who advocated radical changes to ensure equality, to ensure equality. Clear? Right. The most important role among them, the most important role among them was played by Leo Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Leo Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Leo Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky, like the role played by Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau in France. Leo Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. The third major factor, major factor was autocratic monarchy. The third major factor was autocratic monarchy in Russia. Autocratic monarchy in Russia. Clear? Right. The rulers in Russia belonged to the Romanov family. The rulers in Russia belonged to the Romanov family. Belonged to the Romanov family. Belonged to the Romanov family. And they were designated as Tsars. C silent. And they were designated as Tsars. C-Z-A-R-S. Some books will write T-S-A-R-S. Designated as Tsars. Clear? Designated as Tsars. Clear? Right. With defeat of Russia in the First World War. Both prestige and resources got affected. Both prestige and resources got affected. Prestige and resources got affected. Both prestige and resources got affected. Prestige and resources got affected. Both prestige and resources got affected. And Russians started socialist revolution on scientific lines. Socialist revolution on scientific lines. Clear? Now we'll understand this. So all the factors are clear, similar to or analogous to French Revolution. Now just understand, clear? Like French Revolution that went on for 10 years uninterruptedly, clear? Marked by different phases, clear? Russian Revolution is also marked by 3 distinct phases but with breaks, clear? So unlike French Revolution, Russian Revolution was not continuous, clear? Rather there were clear-cut breaks in Russian Revolution, but with these breaks there were 3 distinct phases of Russian Revolution, clear? In fact, the alarming sign, the first major phase of Russian Revolution took place in the beginning of 20th century only. And the reason was, in the year 1905, Russia, even though being one of the largest country of Europe area-wise, was defeated by a small Asian country, Japan. Clear? When Russia got defeated by Japan in 1905, then also the sentiments of Russians got adversely affected, and it was realized that Tsars are not capable enough to defend Russia. Clear? And therefore, large number of youths and leaders in Russia demanded that autocratic power of Tsars must be restricted and a constitutional monarchy should be established. And this resulted into establishment of Russian parliament in 1906. This Russian parliament was named as Russian Duma. Clear? So establishment of Russian parliament or Duma was itself a revolutionary development, and therefore this is considered to be the first phase of Russian Revolution in 1906. After this, radical sentiments began to be promoted in Russia, and with this radical sentiments promoted in Russia, socialist ideology began to be accepted by large number of Russian people, and this socialist ideology was accepted, which was given by Karl Marx in 19th century. Karl Marx in 19th century wrote a very important work, The Communist Manifesto in 1848, in which he emphasized on the philosophy of scientific socialism, also known as Marxism. And this was quite scientific and mathematical in nature, which was largely applicable to all the countries and societies, and Russians accepted Marxism largely, and based on Marxist ideology, socialist philosophy began to grow in Russia, leading to socialist revolution. Clear? First of all, we'll write about the first phase. Clear? Right. Scientific. Clear? I'll explain the meaning of scientific socialism, why it is known as scientific revolution. Don't worry about Nimai. I'll come to that point. Clear? Right. First of all, right, the Russian Revolution. The Russian Revolution was marked by three distinct phases, at different points of time. Clear? Different points of time. Right. The first phase of Russian Revolution took place. The first phase of Russian Revolution took place in the beginning of the 20th century. In the beginning of the 20th century. Clear? Right. In 1905, Russia was defeated in 1905. Russia was defeated by Japan. Which affected the sentiments of Russian people. But consequently, Russians demanded a certain check on monarch, through a parliamentary body. Clear? Right. This led to the establishment of Russian Parliament. Or Duma. led to the establishment of Russian Parliament or Duma. Russian Parliament or Duma in 1906. In 1906, which was a revolutionary development. Which was a revolutionary development. Okay? Right only. At the same time, large number of Russian youths, at the same time, large number of Russian youths, large number of Russian youths, at the same time, large number of Russian youths adopted heroic methods. HEROIC, large number of Russian youths adopted heroic methods to assassinate, unpopular Russian officers, unpopular Russian officers, and they were known as nihilist, and they were known as nihilist, and their ideology came to be known as, nihilism, Russian nihilism. It had impact on Indian revolutionaries also, and their ideology came to be known as nihilism. Okay, change paragraph. Right. In the beginning of the 20th century, scientific socialism became highly popular in Russia. Scientific socialism became highly popular in Russia, which was given by German philosopher, Karl Marx. In his work, The Communist Manifesto. The Communist Manifesto, written in 1848. Okay, right. Therefore, scientific socialism is also known as Marxism. The scientific socialism is known as Marxism. Now here we only will understand what do mean by scientific socialism, and then we'll understand your question, Nimai, why Russian revolution is considered to be socialist and scientific in nature. Clear? So first of all, scientific socialism given in 1848 when Karl Marx wrote the work Communist Manifesto. Therefore, this ideology is also known as Marxism. Clear? And for your information, initially when Karl Marx gave this ideology of scientific socialism, it could not attain popularity. After the death of Karl Marx in 1883, his works began to be promoted and published by his childhood friend, close friend known as Friedrich Engels. And when Friedrich Engels began to publish his work, the ideology of Karl Marx started to acquire popularity. Russians accepted this ideology to a large extent, leading to scientific socialism. This scientific socialism given by Karl Marx is based on three major pillars. Clear? The first major pillar of scientific socialism is historical materialism. The first major pillar is historical materialism. Second major is theory of class struggle. Theory of class struggle. And third is theory of surplus value. Clear? So historical materialism, class struggle, and theory of surplus value. Theory of surplus value. Clear? Now we'll understand this. Clear? What exactly do we mean by all these things? Clear? By the concept of historical materialism, Karl Marx made it clear that the whole historical phenomena, right from evolution of mankind, is a story of appropriating material resources. Clear? So according to Karl Marx, in prehistorical and historical phases, most of the battles and wars were fought to acquire more and more material wealth by after defeating the adversary power. So history is nothing but the story of appropriating material wealth and resources through wars and battles. In modern times, according to Karl Marx, this process continues, and this process continues when large number of the resources of the working classes are appropriated by the urban middle classes, and that results into surplus wealth coming into the pockets of affluent classes. So history is nothing. He gave economic interpretation to history and said history is nothing but a story of appropriation of material resources by dominant section against the powerless sections. Clear? With this only he came to another concept of class struggle. He said that in course of history, when powerful sections went on accumulating more and more wealth, clear, and large number of sections were left without any resources, it led to two distinct classes in society. These two sections in society are known as haves and have-nots. Clear? So according to Karl Marx, in course of time, clear, societies began to be marked by two distinct classes known as class of haves and class of have-nots. Haves means having abundant amount of wealth, and have-nots means having scarcity of resources. Clear? And ultimately the history is about a struggle between haves and have-nots, and this struggle between haves and have-nots is known as class struggle. Clear? In fact, Karl Marx said that this concept of haves and have-nots became more popular due to capitalist philosophy that promoted industrialization, because through industrialization capitalism, resources remained confined to some sections and large sections were bereft of major resources, creating class of haves and have-nots. Clear? And according to Karl Marx, clear, haves were basically termed as the bourgeois class, clear, and have-nots were termed as the working or the proletariat class. Clear? So according to Karl Marx, the haves were known as the bourgeois class, the upper middle class, and the have-nots were basically the working or the proletariat class. Clear? Now how come this mechanism leads to accumulation of resources in class of haves without having benefit for have-nots? Clear? This is explained by Karl Marx mathematically through surplus value. What is this concept of surplus value? According to Karl Marx, clear, the output generated by workers is much more than the wages paid to them, and this difference between output and wages is known as the surplus value, which is the real profit of the bourgeois class or the capitalist class. Clear? So according to Karl Marx, the output generated by workers is much more than the wages paid to them, and this difference between output and wages is the surplus value that goes directly into the pocket of the capitalist class, and that results into two classes of haves and have-nots. Clear? This proved to be highly convincing in nature, mathematical in nature. Russians got largely convinced about this, and Russians wanted that through revolutionary methods only they can ensure proper redistribution of resources, and therefore they began to advocate socialist revolution in Russia. Is this concept clear of historical materialism, theory of class struggle, and surplus value? There's a question. Is Nimai the concept of scientific socialism clear? Sir, Indian communists follow which type of communism? Chinese, Russian, Germany. Clear? So first of all, I'll let you know, clear, that communist leaders in India does follow different variants of communism. Some of them follow Leninism, they are known as Leninist followers. Some of them follow Maoism, which is another variant of communism. Naxal forces in our country follow Maoist philosophy. Clear? And Chinese follow Maoist Chinese communism, Russians follow Leninism, and Germany follow another concept. Clear? And therefore in India we have different variants of communist leader like SFI, then we have ISA, because because all these are basically followers of either Marx philosophy or Lenin philosophy. We'll come to Lenin's philosophy here only, which is known as Leninism. Clear? Please speak a little bit slow. Okay, fine, no issue. Clear? Is this concept clear? All of you, historical materialism, class struggle, and surplus value. Right about this. Clear? Right. Karl Marx gave economic interpretation of history, gave economic interpretation of history, economic interpretation of history, which is based on the doctrine of historical materialism, class struggle, and surplus value. Clear? Surplus value. Right. According to the doctrine of historical materialism, clear? Historical or materialism, doctrine of historical materialism, throughout historical evolution, every dominant section has tried. Every dominant section has tried to appropriate more and more resources, Clear? Right. Such phenomena resulted into two distinct classes of haves and have-nots, leading to class struggle. Okay? Right. According to Karl Marx, the ideology of capitalism further leads to class struggle, between haves and have-nots, also known as the bourgeois class and the proletariat class. Clear? Class. Right. Next paragraph. That the distinction between the distinction between the bourgeois class and the proletariat class has been explained by Karl Marx, through the theory of surplus value, through the theory of surplus value, through the theory of surplus value. Clear? Right. According to this theory, the output generated by workers, the output generated by workers is much more than their wages, is much more than their wages. And this difference termed as surplus value, and this difference termed as surplus value goes directly to the bourgeois class, goes directly to the bourgeois class. Clear? All the concepts are clear. Historical materialism, class struggle, surplus value, all are interconnected with each other. Clear? Right. Next paragraph. Right. The Marxist philosophy, also known as Marxism, the Marxist philosophy was largely accepted by Russian people, accepted by Russian people that marked the beginning of class consciousness, and collective bargaining in Russia. Class consciousness and collective bargaining in Russia. Collective bargaining in Russia. Collective bargaining in Russia. Bargaining in Russia. Clear? Right. In course of time, distinct classes of peasants, workers, and even soldiers, distinct classes of peasants, workers, and soldiers came into existence, termed as Soviets, Clear? Right. At the same time, some socialist leaders advocated political transformation in Russia, and they were known as Mensheviks. And they were known as Mensheviks. They were known as Mensheviks. Okay. Right. On the other hand, some socialist leaders, on the other hand, some socialist leaders strongly supported socio-economic transformation, strongly supported socio-economic transformation and were collectively known as the Bolsheviks. Collectively known as the Bolsheviks. So Mensheviks and Bolsheviks. Mensheviks advocated only political change. Bolsheviks advocated socio-economic change. Clear? Right. The Bolsheviks were led by a socialist leader. The Bolsheviks were led by a socialist leader, Vladimir Lenin. Socialist leader Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin. Clear? Vladimir Lenin. Right. With few Bolsheviks. Next sentence. With few Bolsheviks. Lenin tried. With few Bolsheviks, Lenin tried to usurp power. USURP. Lenin tried to usurp power. USURP. Tried to usurp power. But was arrested and exiled. To Zurich in Switzerland. To Zurich in Switzerland. Clear? Right. Consequently, socialist ideology began to be promoted. Socialist ideology began to be promoted by Mensheviks. Under the leadership of Alexander Kerensky. ALEK. In Russian language, we don't write X. Under the leadership of Alexander Kerensky. Clear? So Lenin was not there in Russia for some time. Clear? Change paragraph. Clear? Right. When Russia was thoroughly defeated in the First World War, Mensheviks, when Russia was thoroughly defeated in First World War, Mensheviks organized a socialist revolution. Mensheviks organized a socialist revolution in February 1917. 27th of February. In old Russian calendar, that date is 27th of February. But according to present Gregorian calendar, it's 12th of March. But we write February Revolution because it is mentioned according to Russian calendar. Organized revolution February 1917, whereby the rule of, whereby the rule of Russian monarch, Tsar, whereby the rule of Russian monarch was ended, Russian monarch was ended, and a provisional government was formed, right? Provisional government capital. And a provisional government was formed under, provisional government was formed under Alexander Kerensky. Provisional government was formed under Alexander Kerensky. Alexander Kerensky, clear? Right. In this way, political transformation took place. In this way, political transformation took place in Russia. Took place in Russia. Okay. Change paragraph. Right. After some time, Lenin returned back to Russia. After some time, Lenin returned back to Russia. Returned back to Russia, and gave a powerful speech. And gave a powerful speech in the Russian capital. Powerful speech in the Russian capital of Petrograd, right known as St. Petersburg. In the Russian capital of Petrograd. Russian capital of Petrograd. Petrograd. On 25th of October 1917, according to Russian calendar. According to present calendar, it's 7th of November. Clear? On 25th of October 1917. Clear? Clear? Right? In this speech, he highlighted, that Russian Revolution is not complete. Russian Revolution is not complete as Russians need, very important thing, as Russians need, right, with inverted comma, Russians need land, bread and peace. Land means proper distribution of resources. Bread means food security. Peace means durable peace. Clear? Russians need land, bread and peace, which is possible only through, socio-economic transformation, not only political, which is possible through socio-economic transformation. Socio-economic transformation. Clear? Right. This led to the third phase. Second phase was led by Mensheviks. This led to the third phase of Russian Revolution. Third phase of Russian Revolution, popularly known as third phase of Russian Revolution, popularly known as the October Revolution or the Bolshevik Revolution. Popularly known as the October Revolution and or the Bolshevik Revolution, led by Bolsheviks to differentiate with Mensheviks, or the Bolshevik Revolution. Okay? Right, during this phase, Alexander Kerensky, fled from Russia. Alexander Kerensky fled from Russia, and Bolshevik Revolution was declared to be successful. And Bolshevik Revolution became successful. So, three phases of Russian Revolution. One was in 1905 that led to Russian Duma. Second was under Mensheviks led by Alexander Kerensky that led to political transformation. Third was led by Bolsheviks that led to socio-economic transformation to fulfill land, bread and peace. Clear? So, Socialist Revolution, also known as October Revolution, also known as Bolshevik Revolution. Clear? Now, what were the consequences of Socialist Revolution Russia from 1917? We look into the approach followed by Vladimir Lenin after successful Bolshevik Revolution. Clear? Right. Consequences of successful Russian Revolution. Right. Heading as consequences of Russian Revolution. Consequences of Russian Revolution. Consequences of Russian Revolution. We'll come to consequences. Clear? Meanwhile, there are some questions. Clear? First question is from Tista. Sir, why Marx focused on class struggle with bourgeoisie, not on aristocrats or nobility? See, again, I'll let you know. Clear? Marx focused on class struggle with bourgeoisie and the proletariat class. The reason is bourgeoisie class was the emerging upper middle class who only appropriated the resources or surplus value from the working or the proletariat class. It was not the aristocrats or the nobility class. Why? The reason is aristocrats or nobility class, they were feudal lords. Clear? And by this time when capitalism came, nobility class began to get affected because feudalism was attacked by capitalist phenomena. More so aristocrats, because aristocrats were royal people and they had resources as a mark of inheritance and legacy, not by appropriating the resources of workers. So aristocrats or the nobility, they didn't had appropriation of resources from the working class. Clear? Aristocrats had abundant amount of wealth as a mark of legacy or inheritance from the forefathers. Nobility had abundant amount of resources of wealth just because of feudal system. But the bourgeois class was basically the class which had abundant or surplus resources due to appropriation of surplus revenue resources from the working class. So obviously Marx focused on class struggle between the working class and the bourgeois class, not the aristocrats nor the nobility class. Is that class? Aristocrats derived resources as a mark of inheritance and legacy, nobility because of existence of feudal system, not from the workers. Clear? That is the reason that Marx focused on class struggle with bourgeois class, not with aristocrats and nobility. Is that clear, Tista? Clear? Next question is from Vishwajit. Sir, you say Russia walk away from Triple Entente, then how Russia defeat First World War? It's little bit confusion to understand. Please clear. I'll let you know. Clear? Russia was there with Triple Entente. There's no doubt about it. Clear? Which came into being in 1907. Clear? Russia was there with Triple Entente when First World War started also. Clear? And Russia only came to the rescue of Serbia when Germany attacked Serbia. But Russia was marked by the traditional system. Russia got thoroughly defeated in the First World War just after some time only, and Russia had to walk away from this war. Since Russia had to walk away from this war, obviously Russia no more remained a member of Triple Entente. So Russia walked away from Triple Entente, and therefore Russia walked away only after being defeated in First World War. So Russia walked away from Triple Entente. Clear? Not before defeat, after being defeated in the First World War. Clear? So Russia got defeated just in the beginning of First World War, and then Russia walked away from Triple Entente. Now the confusion is clear. So Russia walked away from the First World War and even from Triple Entente after being defeated, not before being defeated. Obviously, when Russia was defeated, there was no point of participating in First World War, and Russia walked away from Triple Entente and the First World War. So is that clear, Vishwajit? There should be no confusion. You should be crystal clear in everything. Clear, Vishwajit? Okay, Tista, thank you. So, coming to this point, clear? So, consequences of Russian Revolution, clear? Next is, sir, what is the reason of date gap in Russian calendar? Is it not same as our calendar? So, there's a difference of few days, clear? For instance, when we say February, it was 27th of February, clear? The date according to present calendar was basically 12th of March. Clear? So you can understand that there are almost 12 to 13 days gap. Clear? So 12 to 13 days gap is there. Clear? In fact, it is 25th of October. Present calendar says it was 7th of November. Clear? So few days gap. That's because every calendar has its own starting time. Clear? And Gregorian calendar started with the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Clear? So there's a difference in some days, counting of days in crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So Russian calendar is few days back and Gregorian calendar is much few days ahead. Clear? So but we call it February Revolution, we call it October Revolution because we have given this name because according to Russian calendar, because it is a part of Russian history. Is it clear? Shubhasis? Fine. Yeah, you mean to Russia participate in first phase of First World War? Yeah, Russia participated in the first phase of First World War and then only Russia got defeated. And then Russia walked away from Triple Entente. Clear, Vishwajit? Now coming to consequences of Russian Revolution. Just understand, clear? If we look into consequences of Russian Revolution, we'll understand Lenin became the president of Russia after successful Russian Revolution in 1917, and Lenin wanted to fulfill his manifesto of socio-economic transformation, that is proper distribution of land, bread and peace. Therefore, Lenin, after successful Russian Revolution, adopted a very important philosophy of approach which is known as philosophy of war communism. He wanted to move towards communism on war footing, that is socialism on war footing, to achieve the ideal of communism. We had discussed earlier, socialism is just a means, the end is communism, because through socialism only the ultimate objective to be achieved is communism, that is society marked by classless and stateless society. Clear? So we'll understand about war communism adopted by Lenin. There's another question from Vidisha. Clear? Sir, you said nihilism inspired Indians. Can you please give some examples? Obviously, see, nihilism began to emerge. It's very important for Indian history. Nihilism began to emerge after 1905, the first phase of Russian Revolution, and because of Russian nihilism only, Russian youths, they began to adopt heroic action and began to assassinate unpopular Russian officers. Clear? At the same time, it had impact on Indian youths also, and just by this time only, the Indian revolutionaries also began to emerge, that too in Bengal only. Clear? And Bengal at that time included the provinces of Bihar and Orissa. Two revolutionaries from Bengal. These two revolutionaries were Prafull Chaki and Khudiram Bose. You must be knowing about them. Clear? Prafull Chaki and Khudiram Bose decided to assassinate the unpopular judge of Muzaffarpur, Kingsford. Clear? They threw a bomb. This was the first proper revolutionary act performed, and it was performed in 1908, just under the influence of Russian nihilist. Clear? 1908. And you must be knowing, due to wrong indication, wrong miscalculation, a bomb was thrown on a carriage occupied by two British women who got seriously injured. And just because of this only, Prafull Chaki shot himself dead on the spot, and Khudiram Bose was arrested and hanged by the British. This is the biggest example to indicate influence of Russian nihilism on Indian youths, especially in the province of Bengal. Initially, Bengal was the epicenter of Indian nationalism. Vidisha, example. Clear? So, war communism adopted by Lenin. Clear? Now, just understand about war communism. Clear? That is socialism on war footing. Under war communism adopted by Lenin from 1917 or 1918, in fact, 1917, by end of 1917, revolution became successful. Clear? According to war communism, Lenin began to promote. Thank you so much. Thank you. According to war communism, Lenin began to promote only public sector enterprises, not the private sector enterprises, because according to him it was believed that private sector enterprises will lead to concentration of surplus wealth in the hands of few sections. Since he wanted proper distribution of resources, he began to promote only state-sponsored enterprises or public sector enterprises, not private sector enterprises. Clear? Secondly, he promoted the interest of urban workers largely rather than the rural gentry. So focus of Lenin was to promote the interest of urban workers who made the Russian Revolution successful. And thirdly, Lenin even restricted the cash flow in the economy because he realized with abundant amount of cash flow, the cash will get confined to few sections that will lead to inequality in society. So a kind of completely command economy, controlled economy was promoted in order to prevent the concentration of wealth and to ensure equality of wealth. And this philosophy approach is known as communism on war footing, known as war communism. This approach of war communism was started by Lenin in 1918 and continued till 1921. By 1921, even Lenin realized that this approach may not be sustainable and it cannot be continued for long. And in 1921, Lenin retreated a step back. When Lenin retreated a step back, Lenin started to mix some liberal principles in war communism and therefore adopted a hybrid approach which is known as New Economic Policy of 1921. Under New Economic Policy, Lenin began to promote coexistence of public and private sector enterprises, also began to support the interest of urban workers along with rural gentry, and even released cash flow in the economy. Just because of this liberal principles and hybrid approach under New Economic Policy, Russia began to grow at a very faster pace. Clear? This rapid economic growth and development took place and socialism started to acquire popularity all across the world. However, Lenin was not destined to enjoy the fruits of his success for long. Lenin died in the year 1924. Even though Lenin died in 1924, clear, at the same time, the model of Russian growth became an example to be taken care or to be taken notice, and therefore, just because of this development only, several Central Asian republics, they joined the Russian Federation. It resulted into a Raj Federation when Central Asian republics joined Russia, and it resulted into a larger political entity known as United Soviet Socialist Republic or Union of Soviet Socialist Republic or USSR, simply known as Soviet Union. Clear? This Soviet Union came into being just after the death of Lenin, and after a brief phase of political confusion in 1928, a dictator came to power in Soviet Union known as Stalin, and from 1928 only Stalin began to formulate and implement 5-year plans on socialist model, and under 5-year plans, Soviet Union began to grow at a much faster pace. This led to further popularity of Soviet socialism and communism, and this popularity was also largely due to one factor, that capitalism came under severe scrutiny and attack, because in 1929, when Soviet Union was developing at a faster pace due to 5-year plans, the capitalist countries faced a very important crisis known as Great Economic Depression of 1929. This Great Economic Depression was largely because of the problems of capitalist philosophy, as resources remained confined to capitalist class and common people were bereft of even purchasing power capacity, and that affected the purchasing power, and that affected the production, and therefore the prices of, or rather the value of, different companies in leading stock markets began to fall down, and this Great Economic Depression started with the crash of Wall Street in 1929, and capitalism began to be questioned all across the world. That further led to trust in the ideology of socialism and communism. We'll come to Great Depression again, because this became a single factor for the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany against the Allied or victorious powers. It's clear, war communism and new economic policy. Even Nehru adopted new economic policy only, that is coexistence of public and private sector enterprises after India's independence. Sir, could you please repeat the sentence starting with Lenin tried to usurp power. With few Bolsheviks, Lenin tried to usurp power. Usurp power means to acquire power forcefully, and was arrested and exiled to Zurich in Switzerland. Usurp power, USURP. It's clear, Nimai? Okay, come right next. Consequences of Russian Revolution. Clear? Right. With successful Russian Revolution, with successful Russian revolution, Lenin promoted radical changes, under the philosophy of war communism. Philosophy of war communism. 1918 to 1921. War communism. Clear? Right. According to this philosophy, Lenin emphasized on public sector enterprises. Lenin emphasized on public sector enterprises, comma, promotion of the interest of urban workers, and even controlled release of cash, in economy. Controlled release of cash in economy. Clear? Right. All such strategy were primarily to prevent concentration of wealth. Concentration of wealth. Clear? Right. However, after some time, Lenin realized that war communism is not sustainable. War communism is not sustainable. And he adopted a hybrid policy in 1921, known as the new economic policy. Clear? Right. Under this policy, Lenin promoted the coexistence of public and private enterprises, comma, emphasis on rural and urban workers, and sufficient release of cash, in the economy. In the economy. Okay? Right? Such hybrid policy is known as Leninism, that led to rapid growth in Russia, rapid growth in Russia and popularity of socialism and popularity of socialism. Popularity of socialism. Socialism. Okay? Right. However, Lenin died in 1924. Lenin died in 1924. 24. Lenin died in 1924. But Russian model became highly popular, and several Central Asian republics and several Central Asian republics and several Central Asian republics joined Russia, leading to the establishment of a large bloc, known as Union Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR. Establishment of a large bloc known as Union Soviet Socialist Republic or USSR. Union Soviet Socialist Republic or USSR. Clear? Right. After some confusion, Stalin emerged as dictator in Soviet Union. Stalin emerged as dictator in Soviet Union and promoted economic growth through 5-year plans. Economic growth through 5-year plans. Clear? Right. All such efforts led to huge popularity of socialism and communism. At global level. Clear? Right. At the same time, ideology of capitalism came under severe criticism due to great economic depression due to Great Economic Depression of 1929. Great Economic Depression of 1929. Economic Depression of 1929. 29. Clear? Right. This depression was due to heavy expenditure in the defense sector, heavy expenditure in the defense sector, which even affected the purchasing power capacity, which even affected the purchasing power capacity of common masses, purchasing power capacity of common masses. Clear? Right. This depression was ended. This depression was ended. This depression was ended. This depression was ended through reforms, of US President, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, through reforms of US President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, known as the New Deal, Clear? New Deal, right? Even though the Great Economic Depression was ended, but it provided ample scope. For the rise of a powerful leader, Adolf Hitler in Germany. We'll come to the reason how Adolf Hitler came to rise with Great Economic Depression. Powerful leader Adolf Hitler in Germany. Clear? So, developments and consequences of Russian Revolution. Huge popularity of socialism and communism worldwide. Clear? Now, these were the major consequences of Russian Revolution, popularity of socialism and communism. We had discussed scientific socialism given by Karl Marx. Clear? Now, meanwhile, just understand. Clear? By this time, we had discussed Russian Revolution. We had also discussed about all major developments that took place in Paris Peace Conference as a consequence of First World War. Clear? Now, from the year 1919, when First World War came to an end, Paris Peace Conference was decided. Clear? Till the year 1939, that is 20 years, from 1919 to 1939, is known as interwar years in world history. Why interwar years? Because 1919 marked the end of First World War and 1939 marked the beginning of another war known as the Second World War. So the period between the two world wars is known as interwar years. Clear? And this interwar years of 2 decades was highly important in world history because several radical developments took place in Europe and other parts of the world that ultimately culminated into another catastrophic war known as the Second World War. Clear? So first of all, we'll discuss about this phase known as interwar years, that is from 1919 till 1939. Clear? Write the next heading as the interwar years. The interwar years. Clear? 1919 to 1939. Just understand what happened in these 2 decades. Clear? Now, in this interwar years from 1919 to 1939, we first of all need to understand, clear, that major developments took place in 3 major countries of the world. These 3 countries were known as Germany, Italy and Japan. And the common thing among all these 3 countries was all the 3 countries began to promote a new ideology of ultra-nationalism known as fascist ideology in Europe and world. Clear? And therefore fascism began to rise in this interwar years, and fascism became the most dominant ideology that ultimately gave way to the catastrophic war known as the Second World War. Clear? The country which is considered to be the genesis of fascism or fascist ideology, this was the country of Italy. Now, why Italy became a fascist power in interwar years and contributed significantly to Second World War, we'll just understand. Clear? Italy largely remained to be a neutral country in the First World War. Italy participated by the end of First World War with Allied powers because Italy was assured by Allied powers that territorial rewards would be given to Italy after the victory. Clear? And with such huge expectation of territorial rewards, Italian President Orlando participated in the Paris Peace Conference. Clear? But victorious powers, especially Britain and France, never showed any inclination of giving territorial rewards to Italy. Therefore, Italian President Orlando left the conference midway, returned back to Italy and began to proclaim that Italian pride has been affected and now Italy needed to promote extreme nationalism, that is nationalism even at the cost of other nation. Clear? This concept of extreme nationalism is derived from the word fascio, Latin word fascio. Fascio literally means bundle of rods. Clear? And such concept of fascio, bundle of rods, was promoted by bundle of military soldiers in Italy who began to promote extreme nationalism. Such bundle or group of military soldiers in Italy, where Italy was led by a powerful leader, Benito Mussolini, who began to advocate extreme nationalism at the cost of other nation. And this ideology of the term for extreme nationalism was derived from the Latin word fascio, to be known as fascism. Clear? So fascism emerged to take place in Italy, and when fascism began to be promoted in Italy by Benito Mussolini, it was marked by 3 distinctive features. Clear? First major feature was obviously promotion of extreme or ultra-nationalism. Second major feature was protection of private property, and third major feature is known as was marked by a strong foreign policy. Clear? So we'll understand about these major developments of fascism in interwar years. Clear? Right, introduction fast. Clear? Right. Right, after the end of the First World War, after the end of the First World War, after the end of First World War till the beginning of the Second World War, several changes took place. All across the world. Several changes took place all across the world. took place all across the world. Clear? Right. The most radical development the most radical development was the most radical development was growth and development of the ideology of fascism. Growth and development of the ideology of fascism. Development of ideology of fascism. Ideology of fascism. Ideology of fascism. Clear? Right. Fascism. Right. This ideology is based on three major components. Is based on three major components of ultranationalism. Three major components of ultranationalism, protection of private property, and a strong foreign policy. These are the three components of fascism: ultranationalism, protection of private property, and a strong foreign policy. Clear? Right. Such radical ideology first of all emerged in Italy. Due to improper treatment given by the Allied powers during the Paris Peace Conference. Clear? Right. Italian President Orlando participated in the conference, Paris Peace Conference, Peace Conference to get territorial rewards, for Italian neutrality. Territorial rewards for Italian neutrality. Clear? Right. However, he returned back without any reward. That led to ultra nationalism that led to ultra-nationalism. Ultra-nationalism among Italians, among Italians, among Italians, ultra-nationalism among Italians, largely promoted by Benito Mussolini, largely promoted by Benito Mussolini, promoted by Benito Mussolini, promoted by Benito Mussolini. Now, how Mussolini promoted ultra-nationalism, how he ensured protection of private property, and how far he adopted strong foreign policy to promote the ideology of fascism or ultra-nationalism, we'll look into the approach of Benito Mussolini. Clear? So, first of all, we'll discuss developments in Italy interwar years, then Germany, and then Japan, the three powers together being known as Axis powers in the course of world history, and these Axis powers only contributed towards the Second World War in 1939. Clear? From here, we'll continue tomorrow. So from this point only, we'll continue tomorrow. Sir, how Hitler emerged from Great Economic Depression? We'll come to that, Subhashis. Don't worry. Clear? We'll discuss how Hitler or how Great Economic Depression facilitated the rise of Hitler in Germany as a major power, major leader. We'll come to that question, Subhashis, tomorrow. Clear? We'll discuss the rise of Hitler. It's clear? Fine. Clear? So from here, we'll continue tomorrow from the same point. Clear? Thank you. All the best.